Fantastic. So you're ready to go for one final afternoon of content and sessions? Excellent. So we thought we'd have a session where we really wanted to get into something that's very close to all of us, our careers, and where we're going. How do we survive this tidal wave of change that we've been talking about for the last day and a half? I think Shane put it right. We're all toast, right? But simply, we're going to take you through some survey work we've done. We spoke with several hundred organizations to really understand where they were going with their careers. What's this career path we're on? You know, we come to events like this and we're trying to figure out what do we do? Onshore outsourcing, sourcing, technology, IT, as a service. I think we're in a world where we have careers which need a lot of definition. But I'd like to start with, figure out these clickers, a little bit of high level about where the industry is and where it's going. A little bit about us. We have a pretty famous blog called Horses for Sources. Does anyone know what that expression means in the UK? Pramod?
Okay. You select different horses for different races.
Perfect, yes. It's a Victorian phrase, horses for courses, which basically means certain horses run better on certain courses depending on the firmness of the ground or anything like that. And someone once said to me, "Oh, outsourcing, mate, it's horses for courses, isn't it?" And so when I was, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So when I started this blog in 2007, I had a glass of wine. I thought it's about time I started a blog. Everyone was starting blogs up, and I just thought, oh, horses for sources, it kind of works. So I came up with a name. And then little did I know I'd be explaining that to an American audience for the next 8 years. But we launched a company off the back of it in 2010. We set up a little research firm. We couldn't get meetings with CFOs with the name Horses for Sources, unfortunately. So we had to abbreviate it to HFS Research. And we've grown to about 23 staff worldwide. We have growing teams in Europe, UK, India, as well as our home base in the States. So, and we thank people like Ahelia and lots of our partners and friends in the industry. I think Frank Casal's here as well, for supporting our growth and believing in us as a business. So, and we finally became, at the end of last year, there was a big award by the Influencer Relations team. We finally became a legacy analyst firm. So we got named with everything that we love to hate. So we got named with Gartner and Forrester as the top 3 analyst firms of 2014. It's amazing what you can do with a cloud platform and a big social following. You can go after companies 1,000 times your size. And we have a research schedule. I won't get too much into that, but it's all around this as-a-service terminology, which is something that plays beautifully into the onshore story. And I'm going to give you examples of some providers which are doing incredibly well in the market because they have an onshore sourcing capability that goes beyond just bread and butter technology services. But we're in something today, I'm calling this, we're in a transition to the as-a-service economy. We're not there now. We're on the way there, and it's going to be a tough journey for many of us. But we really look at 4 things. It's about getting technologies to actually augment your knowledge labor. So when you look at cognitive computing as an example here, it's not about replacing staff. It's about making their knowledge smarter. It's about working smarter, not cheaper. The economy we're in is about getting that optimal operating model. So today, if you need to make a decision about how do we get better finance or HR or IT support, you've got loads of different options. You can outsource, you can do shared services, you can go and just buy a SaaS application and do it yourself, or you can do crowdsourcing. There's lots of different options. The third element of the as-a-service economy is this burning platform for change. Is there one? What is driving the change? Is it the globalization of labor? Is it high growth emerging markets? Is it the consumerization of technology? Lots of different things are driving the change. But then what makes it all possible? It's talent. Talent's at the core of everything we're talking about today. It's how do we shift what we're doing and figure out what we're going to make ourselves more successful as a career in the future. So the ideals of as a service are quite simple. Legacy was yesterday, and this is where we're shifting to. So, sort of picking these up here, but design thinking, it's about generating creative solutions by understanding the business context. We talk about things like the business cloud, which is plug and play business services. It's that ability to tap into expertise from providers, not have to go through these painful transitions to get to your end state. It's about what we call intelligent automation. It's getting away from fragmented processes and moving towards much more blended automation and analytics. You hear about terms like robotic automation. That's not actually traditional automation. It's a way of scripting and mimicking human behavior in the software. Sorry, moved on too quickly there. Other elements of the as-a-service world is intelligent data. It's about real-time access to analytics models, not having unstructured data sets, things that are much more structured. And we hear a lot about building an automation layer. That's really the first building blocks in transformation. When you're trying to get away from a model that's based purely on labor and get to a model that's based on doing things better, doing things faster, you need to have your processes automated, because you can't do analytics until you've got successful automation of your processes. A sixth ideal is writing off legacy. How can you make that technical debt decision within your organization? How do you say, we spent $50 million on this legacy ERP system over the last 20 years, it's time to put it to bed, let's just do something new, let's hive it off. What's the appetite for change and do that? I just heard about, I think Amex sold off one of their captives in India, and they literally just dumped everything and went with Workday, Salesforce.com, and they just went for a complete, let's just hive it off, go for the new. Then we get into the brokers of capability. It's how do people who are spending their days managing contracts, managing budgets and transactions, get to somebody who's actually becoming a broker of talent, who can actually have relationships with technology providers, software vendors, consulting firms, outsourcing firms, etc. So you can really bring that capability to bear for your business, and that's something that Barbara's going to talk about at length as we look at the career paths we're on. And then finally, how do we engage more intelligently? Everyone wants to lease now. Everyone wants to pay by the drink. People want 1-year renewable contracts. They don't want 5-year prison sentences. So as we look at this globalization of the industry, we run a state of outsourcing study every year, and you can actually see we asked a large number of enterprise buyers globally, were they going to increase significantly their outsourcing spend? And you can see the comparisons. It's actually slowing down a little bit in terms of it's moderating the pace. We still have 72% of enterprises increasing outsourcing, but most of them at a more moderate pace. On the other side, you can see a lot more clients investing in their shared services. So 24% of enterprises are making significant reinvestments into their shared services, a lot of it their offshore global in-house centers as well. So we talk about the pace of change and the shift to the new model. The old model's still working. It's not going anywhere. We just know where it's going to be in 5 years' time. The challenge is how do we get there? So this is the very first time anyone's seen this data. This is we did a big ideals of as-a-service study. We got the data in literally about 3 days ago. We haven't even got the colors right on the charts yet, but I thought I'd share some of it with you. But this is 178 major buyers of services and operations, IT. And we did a split between the SVPs and up and the VPs and down. And we asked them, how critical is the as-a-service economy to your organization? We explained what it was, just as we had to you. You can actually see with the SVPs, you can see over half of them see this as really important to their organization. They are driven in, we have to have change, we have to do this. But then we get to the management layer and down, only 29% see it as critical. So the platform for change is really coming from the top layers in the organization. They're the ones who feel the need to find that next 20–30% of cost takeout. Right? They need that transformational story. And it doesn't look like they've got the people under them who are willing to do it with them. So what ultimately is going to happen? If you've got a team of folks who aren't going to jump on the train and change the way they want to act, change the way they want to operate, eventually you're going to look more at partnerships with companies that are going to help you. But there's clearly an issue going on with the drivers from the top and the activities at the kind of middle layer. We also asked the same group of people how much impact would it take if they did the following actions on getting to an as-a-service end state. And I just picked out a few examples here. You probably get a headache trying to read all this slide. But you can see here, 61% of SVPs and above believe that replacing their existing legacy service provider with an as-a-service provider would have a significant impact on their business. 61% of leaderships think it's time to switch. They're fed up with what they've got. They're fed up with the same cranking, widget turning, low value, not very exciting services they're getting. But at the same time, only 21% of the folks underneath them feel the same way. So there's clear an appetite at the senior level, and I think Brina was talking about this earlier, with you've got to have the conversations at that level in this game. Right? They're the ones who are really interested in change and partnerships and that sort of thing. So, and then I wanted to share, this is something that is also being released tomorrow. It's quite exciting. We did a very detailed study on a very hot area of the market, which is Workday, BPO, and implementation services. You talk to a head of HR today, you mention the term Workday, their eyes light up. Right? It's like talking to a CIO about SAP 20 years ago. They all had to have a rollout from their resume. It's all about moving into the Workday environment now. And there's this whole ecosystem of itty-bitty providers who are coming up from absolutely nowhere to deliver implementation, onshore support around workforce design, analytics, as well as doing some of the basic payroll fulfillment and that sort of thing. But this company came top, OneSource Virtual, one of Workday's early partners. They're only about 50 million in revenue. They're able to go into clients and win really, quite complex, transformational HR deals because they can undercut the competitors by serious amounts of money. And so you've got traditional players like Deloitte, IBM, Mercer, Aon Hewitt. They're falling behind the little guys. You've got these new kids on the block like Meteorix and Collaborative Solutions. They're having their lunch. And this is happening in many different markets. We're looking at the SuccessFactors SAP ecosystem. Same thing happening there. Getting into the healthcare space. Got this whole new plethora of small providers coming in, often single process focused. Most of the delivery is local, it's onshore. This is where the shift's happening. And I think if you're a consultant or you work on the sales side of the business, we've got tons of opportunity. There's going to be loads more players on the market. So, I mean, change brings complexity, but it's going to bring a lot more competition at the sort of the smaller end of the market. So I think if we looked at our provider ecosystem in 5 years' time, you're going to get a smaller number of the tier ones. So they may consolidate down to 5 players from the current 12 we have. And then we're going to get a whole load of these kind of $50, $100, $150 million providers battling it out for the smaller stuff. If the ones in between are going to be, I think, the ones who eventually go away. Just some other highlights as we look at the world in terms of as a service. When you look at regions like the Asia-Pac region, these clients, we asked them, how much progress do you think you're going to have made towards getting to an as-a-service end state over the next 2 years? It's actually Asia-Pac companies are far more bullish about getting there than companies in the US or the UK or in Europe, for example. So you can see getting to the business cloud, getting into intelligent automation. These are just examples of how a lot of these Asian businesses, because they don't have legacy arbitrage-based infrastructures, they can just jump straight into these SaaS-driven, analytics-driven as-a-service models. So it's kind of zero to hero, A to C, get there quicker, faster, and smarter. It's really benefiting those companies who don't have the legacy. When we get into industries, it's actually, we picked out, who's expecting to make the most, who's expecting the most impact of as a service on their organization. And you can see it's those, right, is it still working? It's those industries which are very knowledge driven, like healthcare and entertainment and media, which are way out there in terms of the as a service shift compared to banking, financial services and insurance and CPG, which is much more conservative. Most of them are sort of, okay, yeah, we'll get there eventually, but we're pretty content with the old model. The new model is where the knowledge-driven industries, the ones that are being disrupted, are really shifting towards. The other sector, and this is very relevant for many of the folks in this room, which is wanting to make the leap, are these small to medium-sized companies. So when we ask them in terms of business value, how much impact would these ideals of as a service have on your performance, you can actually see the over 10 billion revenue companies, not quite as much impact, writing off legacy, yeah. But then you get to the under 1 billion, wow, I mean, they just want to jump. The smaller businesses really want to make that shift and make it fast. And the problem is most of the large providers today are not catering for that market. Right? Some of the onshore companies are. I was hearing about Panera and some other smaller sized deals there. But I think there's a great opportunity for the onshore players to start thinking about there's a really big SME opportunity opening up. And when we actually look at planning, these are actual definitive plans that have been made to get to as a service end stage. You can see here, it's actually the mid-market which is the most active. So in terms of investing in analytics tools, investing in internal IT talent, or external IT services, you can see it's the middle market, the $1 to $10 billion segment, which is making the most plans to get there. It's actually the $10 billion plus who are pretty much doing nothing. They're sitting around, they're kind of thinking, we'll just lumber along with the old model. And just to reinforce this, we'll look at where these transitions have been made, but we asked the companies, what are the most significant drivers in this move to as a service? So at the bottom here, only 13% say it's not because there's no value in the current model. The real drivers, it's about getting more digitally aligned operations and accessing much better data to improve their business. Those are the real drivers today. People aren't completely up in arms about their existing model. It's like, okay, it's just not getting anywhere. We need to have things augmented. And I think that's where the opportunity opens up, especially for niche providers coming to play, saying we can provide services in those analytics areas, in the areas that provide real value around automation that can get you where you want to go. But then let's look at what's really going to happen. We asked the same businesses, how quickly will your core enterprise processes actually be delivered as a service? And this is where I think it's quite depressing. When you look at the 10 billion plus companies, 7 out of 10 don't expect anything to happen in the next 5 years. They're literally going to, at some point we'll do this, but right now, other things are more important. However, when you look at the 1 to 10 and the $1 billion companies, they're much higher proportion. So the $1 billion and under, 3/4 of them think they'll be completely in as a service in the next 5 years. So I think some companies, if you're saying we're not going to be there in 5 years, it means you have no plans. You know it's there, but you're not going to do anything. And so I'll leave you with one final slide. And we asked during the same study, this is about 300 odd actually service providers, and we asked them what actions would most significantly differentiate them in the as-a-service economy. 45%, the largest number by a mile, said, yeah, we want to invest in lots of marketing and thought leadership around the as-a-service ideals. But only 32% actually want to invest in a robotics platform and less in a cognitive computing platform. So these are a lot of top-tier providers just basically thinking all they have to do is put out loads more marketing, let's go and open up a IBM Institute for Business Value and retrain our existing delivery talent, and we'll be there. So it tells you, a lot of this is noise. There isn't a lot of real action happening, like in terms of really winning out in the business. And I think when you start to look at some of these niche providers and really start to understand the value they're bringing in terms of true models which have native RPA built into their environments, don't have these clunking great cost infrastructure's there that they have to support. That's where I think this market shifted, and I think the onshore economy's got a real role to play in this. So I'm going to hand you over to Barbara, who's now going to get right into the talent issue on how can we actually focus on our careers and our own capabilities to start to make this transition.
Phil, can I ask one question before
Sure.
you transition? I'm just curious, what is in your sense as to people getting the as-a-service thing? I mean, I find, between robotic process automation, Internet of Things, and all sorts of wonderfully intellectually stimulating and nebulous terms, we all in the industry get all enthused about it, right? And then, you end up talking to people and they kind of either don't get it or they sort of get it or they have a different definition. You find that as a challenge when you try to either communicate this or survey it?
Yeah, I mean, we thought a lot about this, and we love as a service because it says what it is. The technology industry understands as a service. Everyone knows what software as a service means, and they're all now saying it's service as a strategy. They've all got their own spins on it. And when we very clearly delineate what as a service is, and we pound it out every day on the social networks, on our research, people are getting it because it's looking at this is the new world. It's very simple. It's like when people started talking about the cloud. Do you remember about 5 years ago? It was crazy. It's just the internet, right? But it became mainstream. People would know what the cloud was. It's in the cloud. Your grandma would say, yeah, I got this in the cloud, right? So RPA is challenged because even in this study, only 50% said they understand it. And these are reasonably sophisticated respondents. But I think it's clever using the term robotics because it's got, it's a divisive term. It gets the attention of the senior management. If you just say it's automation, everyone's going to be like, so yeah, it'll be a bit like that for a while. But no, I do think as a service it's sticking. I think digital is sticking as well. We thought when that came out, oh, here we go, it's Accenture, everyone's going to copy them. But it works. It's about digitally aligning your legacy processes into the digital world. So I think in general, we keep banging the drum, it sort of eventually sticks. So. Anyway, off to you, Barbara.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, so I think it does take the role of everyone in this room to create the energy and the focus on getting to that as a service economy, because there is a lot of excitement when you think about what we can deliver through design thinking that focus on creativity and the environmental impact that you can have on doing things in a different way and using the cloud and using intelligent automation, et cetera. But underlining all of that and actually getting there is going to take talent and changing a lot of the talent that has been traditionally the approach in outsourcing in the past. And so this really is a transition state that we're in, but we see a lot of these roles starting to take shape already. And what we want to do is really start to create some energy and definition around sourcing as a profession. What's the future of sourcing as a profession? What are the roles in it? What is the type of training and development and opportunity that's in place? We want to create something that people are proud to be a part of and feel that they're delivering real results. And to have a lasting career in sourcing. One of the things that we did a few months ago at a session, Mary Lassity described earlier how in the Outsourcing Institute they divided the service buyers and the service providers into two different rooms and they asked questions of both. We did something very similar at an HFS event about 6 months ago. We had a number of service buyers in a room and we asked them, which of the following actions would improve the quality and outcome of your current sourcing initiative? We gave them the options of letting go, giving more responsibility to the service provider, getting rid of FTE pricing altogether, not tying it to certain heads and employee counts, moving to a more consultative, transformational type of arrangement, going year by year. Every year, renew. Every year, try again. Having the threat of a competitive bid or just nothing. This is what we entered into, and this is just what we're going to stick with. And you can see here that almost half of them said, look, it's really about we know we need to let go and let our service provider do more, but we don't feel comfortable with it yet. And what was lacking as we kind of dug into this through conversation was there was this lack of sort of trust and comfort level in letting go. So what's going to get to that point where we can really get more value out of an outsourcing relationship? It's really dependent on the people who are involved in the value that's being delivered and how that's being felt at the end of the day. And that's through interpersonal relationships too. So it all links back to the talent. And so we wanted to explore a little bit more about talent in BPO and outsourcing, the direction, what kind of people are attracted into these kinds of roles, how long do they think they'll stay in these roles, what do they think they need to change to be create more value and interest and excitement in long-term career development, and really consider this as a profession. So that's kind of how we got into really looking at this whole area of career development and BPO and ITO as a profession. So we did go out and we did a survey. We asked we got about 550 respondents across buyers, service providers, and advisors as well. And we asked them a number of questions. We got great representation from the US and India and Europe. And so that kind of gives you a sense of who participated. And it was really more focused on the leadership level. So what you're going to see coming up is more the point of view from a director, vice president, manager type of role, who's in the leadership roles, who helps create, develop, and drive sustainable value through the relationships. So we asked them, what is it that drives sustainable value in a relationship over time? And the three most important tenets that they came back with were collaboration, transparency, and honesty. So collaboration, working together to drive towards a result. Interactivity, transparency, having insight into what's going on, into that other organization, how they're doing things, what they care about, how they work, what's the culture. Honesty, from a service buyer perspective, it was being honest about what they really need. Do they have money to pay for it? Do they have the authority to make the decisions? Are they entering into this for the long term? Do they really care about the results? From the service provider side, do they really have the talent that they're saying they do? Are they going to deliver to the results that they're signing up for? So there's this, all three of these are really interlinked. Collaboration, transparency, honesty, and having the governance framework in place to pull it all together. So this, again, was all linked back to the relationship, the ongoing interaction between the organizations and the talent that's involved. We also looked into how does it change? What are the skills that are being looked for and prioritized if you're in a shorter, if you're in the beginning stages of a relationship versus midterm, you've been in a relationship for a little while, versus longer term, you've been in a relationship for a longer period of time, a contract that's 6 years or more. And what we found was that, in each of these cases, in the first few years, it's really about developing that starting point for the relationship, getting to know each other, getting those quick wins that are really going to convince the senior executives of the buyer that this was the right thing to do, of the provider that this was the right thing to do, that the results are coming in. And a lot of that now, today, is about, as these relationships are just getting started, getting right through the door with, are we using the tools that we have around automation to get started? If it's not being automated, then what do you need to do to get there? So being able to have that comfort factor with the authority and the relationships at the senior executive level, and being able to immediately apply some technology to standards that are in place, or identifying how you're going to get on that path to automation. Then a more mature relationship, what they came back and said that this is about still automating processes, but now it's about analytics. How are we using the insight, the data that's been now, it's more accurate, it's more predictable, we have more of it because it's interoperable. We have interoperable systems, et cetera. So how are we using the data? What response are we getting? What kinds of ideas are coming out of that are going to define and impact value beyond cost? So we need to keep getting that cost structure in place, but how are we going to go beyond that? So those were the priority areas that they wanted to impact. And then the more mature relationships, what they're looking for is, all right, so all these other things are happening, but what we really want now is better use of technology to continue to drive new ways to reduce costs and increase value. So again, it comes back to what skill is going to help deliver in each phase of the relationship. What skills do you need, and what skills are going to help develop or deliver the value that is felt and recognized in the relationship? So what we found was, we did the survey, and then we also did a number of interviews with people. And we asked them, what is it that you do? You're a VP of governance, you're a service delivery lead, you're, what are some of the other roles? You're an operations lead, you're a GBS manager, a global business services manager. And what we found that was common among all of them, at any phase of the relationship, 3 years, 3 to 6 years, more than 6 years, a broken relationship or a stronger relationship, what was starting to become common among them as they got to that manager VP level was that it was about managing the relationship, not just managing the contract. So a lot of them came in to manage a contract, but realized what they were really doing was managing the relationship to deliver against the contract. And a lot of times that was, whether they were working for the service buyer or the service provider, understanding what that result was that they needed to impact at the end of the day and creating the right roadmap to get there. And that meant leveraging internal, external resources, knowing when to tap into what tools, technology, capabilities, skills, et cetera, and putting all those in place. So it was really about brokering relationships. It was about brokering between internal and external organizations. It was about bringing in the right tools, the right methods, the right process depth and expertise, and then identifying the gaps and how to fill those as well, all to get to that end result. And so people who came in to think, I'm managing a contract, actually ended up managing a relationship as much as anything else. And so we're starting to refer to these people as capability broker. This is a role that's really starting to take shape as a career, as a profession within outsourcing. And not looking at that as a title so much as a role. Starting to recognize that there's an opportunity here for people to really take pride in driving towards a result and using all of these different elements, the tools, the technologies, the relationships, to hit those outcomes and drive results. And a lot of people told us that they were in this because they saw a way. A lot of people came in from consulting or from managing a technology, but they're doing this because they recognize that this is a way to quote unquote hard code the value, to not just define that change that could be put in place, but make it happen over time, and make sure that it continues to deliver value. What they were challenged by was that they didn't feel like there was really a recognition for the results that they were driving, and a recognition that this is a career. And so that's the part that's really lacking. And if we want to continue to drive results through outsourcing, and we see sourcing as a really strong model for helping grow the economy and businesses, then we need to start to recognize this as a profession, outsourcing, as a profession, and be proud of it, be able to talk about it. And that's what I hear over the last day and a half. And it's good to hear that reflected in this room, but we also need to drive it outside of this room as well. So sourcing as a profession. Here's a little bit about what I was talking about. When we went out and asked, these are the characteristics of a profession. Intellectual challenge and opportunity, developing skills, how do you feel the balance of your workload is? Do you see career opportunities inside your organization, outside your organization? Is there a comfort level with your compensation? And do you get the kind of non-monetary recognition that you're looking for? And you can see here, there's a split. The orange is buyers, if you can't read the scale. The orange is buyers, the blue is providers, and the light blue is advisors. And these are people, again, who are all in either BPO, ITO, or shared services or global business services, any kind of services role. And a lot of them, they said they're in it, the intellectual challenge, incredibly satisfying. There's always a problem to solve, an opportunity to address, and they love the fact that there's this intellectual engagement that's pretty consistent over time. They also found that there are a lot of opportunities to develop skills, and that's great. But what they were lacking, again, was this non-monetary recognition and opportunities to develop their career, or move to other roles and jobs. They didn't see where they would go next. It was a little harder to figure out. Only 1 in 8 professionals new to sourcing see it as a long-term career. What this breakdown of data shows is that there's a lot of interest across the board, regardless of how many years one of our respondents was in sourcing as a role or as a job, whether it was less than 2 years or more than 10. 84% and above said BPO is a force for innovation and change. That's why I'm here. The intellectual challenge, that ability to make a change and make a difference. That's great, totally happy with it. But if you look down at the bottom, that excitement and energy around driving change is not translating into a long-term commitment to a career path and a career track. And that's where we're lacking. And you can see that small orange bar, those are people who've been in this for less than 2 years. Ah, thank you. I know, my finger's not long enough. Yeah, and these are the leaders in the future. These are people that we need to stay in it to help us get to that as-a-service economy and continue to drive value out of the relationships that we've started, that we've put in place.
We call it like the accidental profession. A lot of people fell into this, and clearly once they've got more experience, they started to enjoy it, but we don't have a defined curriculum, a defined path for millennials or people making the career switch into a sourcing type role.
Yeah, and we're starting to see some organizations address this. In particular, I know Capgemini has a mentoring program that they've put in place where they match mentors between gender, between culture, and location to start to create some further relationships and show the opportunity. Because one of the challenges is there's not really a job description. You go into finance, you can be an auditor, you can be the comptroller. But you come into BPO or ITO, there's not a you are this, you are that, you are the other thing that's commonly recognized. You go to Accenture, you go to onshore outsourcing, you go to even on the buyer side, in the procurement organization or GBS, there are all kinds of different titles, and there's no one path. Everyone's kind of going like this. And again, that's kind of representative of this is, you can describe the role as capability broker, because this is people who have really managed to build skills in a number of different areas that come together that fit well into BPO and to fit well into ITO. But the challenge is you can't really map out how you get there. And so it's hard to encourage other people to do that as well. So this is a challenge for our industry that we need to embrace and figure out how to address. How do we bring in people and help them find a path or create a path to be long-term in outsourcing? So we did find that technology has a positive impact on interest in sourcing careers. So one of the things that we asked was, how is technology impacting your decision to pursue a long-term career in BPO? A lot of people came into BPO and they came in maybe as a processor, and their next step was, well, I'm going to now supervise 20 people who are doing what I did. And then you move up, and it was all about how many people can you supervise? And and in the future, it's going to be more of, okay, I'm coming in to do this job. How do I make it more efficient, effective using technology? There's a lot of interest in technology. I think one great example of how technology has had a positive impact on a career path for people is at one of the service providers, where they brought in an automation tool, and they looked at, okay, so where's a process that, where's a selection of processes that we can make, that we can automate? And they identified an area in insurance. It's these forms called LPANs in the UK. Those of you in the UK are going to be more familiar with this than I am, but it's an insurance form that has to be filled out, and there's a spreadsheet. And you fill in, it's, basically you have two screens, and there's one screen with the spreadsheet and one screen with the data, and you have to move data from one screen to the other, right? You have to do this like 50 times or so. And then you have to upload them all to a tool, and then there's like a whole series of processes. They cut this up into process, and they said, we're going to start automating these processes. And the team that usually did this manually said, this is great. We think this is an opportunity to do something in a different way. So they helped figure out, how do you automate it? And it sort of took on a life of its own. They actually ended up giving a personality to the robot, and they called it Poppy for whatever reason. I can't remember the reason. But anyway, Poppy took on a personality. Poppy had a user ID and a password to be able to get into the system. And as they went through the process, they said, okay, well, here's the next job for Poppy, because this is something that Poppy can do. And one person took on the role of managing Poppy. That was her role. What is Poppy going to do next? How is it going to get done? When should Poppy turn on and off? And when do we want to bring in Poppy's friend Henry, who was the next robot that they named? So they've really embraced this whole idea of using technology, and it's changed their career opportunities and paths and interest and engagement in their jobs. And so there's a lot of opportunity for working in a different way. I mean, that's one way that technology was embraced within their organization. We're seeing, I talked to another VP of governance, and again, it's like broadly named. He said what his job is. He manages HR for his organization, and he manages the vendor contracts for ADP and Convergys, I think it is, that they use as third parties. And I asked him about what's the impact of technology on sourcing, and what he said was, it's about letting go and letting the technology do its job. In this case, it was cloud and BPaaS. ADP has a cloud-based tool. He was able to eliminate all the technology that they use for certain functions in HR, give them all to the service provider who uses ADP's own tool set and people to run those processes now. And he just lets go and lets them do it. And you can see here how cloud solutions and BPaaS technology are considered two trends that will have great impact on BPO and outsourcing. For buyers, they were looking at how big data and analytics have more of an impact in the immediate near term. I think this is because, in a lot of ways, two reasons. One is, a lot of buyers still want to keep the data and analytics in-house because of sensitivity around confidentiality and data concerns, but also because a lot of times they want to establish their own models first before they outsource. So we'll see more impact on analytics technology further down the road at service providers. Okay, so which skills are greatest in demand? What we found was, again, because the increasing use of technology, the increasing focus on business outcomes, these are the skills that are increasing in demand and also hardest to find. I think that this is something that has come up a couple of times over the past day and a half, that these skills are hard to find, and we need to be cultivating them internally. So we're seeing a lot of service providers create their own training programs, but also partner with educational institutions like the universities to create their own educational certification and training programs in-house. And then we asked, what's going to help? So bringing it all back to the factors that will influence over time the sustainable value of a relationship, and what skills are relevant. We asked what would help make a change in collaboration, transparency, and also trust. And a lot of what came up first is it ties back to creativity, ties back to innovation, and ties back to relationship and collaboration, and things like joint sessions and having people on site. So taking people from the service buyer, having them work on a project at the service provider, and vice versa. That was another activity that some organizations have seen success with in creating more transparency and collaboration for better results. All right, so where to next? Just sum it all up. I think that there's a great opportunity for the future of outsourcing, but that we need to band together, if you will, and bring the energy in this room and other people to help define the profession and help define the career paths and to continue to develop the training opportunities and new approaches to work. That's it. We have 20 seconds left. I don't know if anyone has any.
Yeah, one of those slides you have there
Yeah.
about the career path and the years of service.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the same
This
answer?
one?
No, the one that said, if I had 2 years of service.
Oh, yeah. How long they've been in the
How
industry?
long have you been in the industry?
Yeah. Did I pass it again?
I think
Forward.
there. Yeah. Now, was the data different if you looked at the service providers versus the buyers? Because you merged the data here.
This is merged.
I remember, it's very similar. On the provider side, there's a bit more career opportunity internally, and also because it's the core business, and there's a bit more focus. But in terms of career opportunities outside of the organisation, it's still fairly limited. But it's pretty clear, I think, that the providers are driving the focus in the career more than the buyers. The buyers are just trying to figure out how to get through the day and get it done. And I think you saw the data earlier around it's the senior leaders in the company who are buying into the concepts, the RPA, the strategy, thinking we've got to do this. It's that middle layer and down who just think we don't know how to do this, we don't have the right partners. So there has to be a shift in terms of the partnership setups that companies have and how they're managed. And I think we're all getting better at this, we're all getting smarter. I mean, we were having conversations 5 years ago we were still just talking about how do we do labour arbitrage right. And we still have those conversations, but it really has moved on to everyone realises they have to get to that next phase, they have to learn how to use technology, or you're toast. But one thing I'd like to conclude with is I don't think we're just going to see waves of people getting laid off in the next 5 years because they became irrelevant. I just think we're going to be hiring different skills. We'll be looking for people with like mathematics backgrounds, not necessarily project management backgrounds, people who can think creatively and bring new things to the table. So we're just going to see a shift in the skills and profiles of people coming into the organizations. And for those people who need to develop their skills, people tend to do that on the whole if they're smart. They figure out, I need to know how to use social better, I need to learn this stuff. People who don't, yeah, there will be casualties. But I do think it's just going to be a changing nature in the types of people that we hire in the future. And I'm sure most of the people in this room today are looking at different talents now when you interview people. You're looking for different motivations and different skills. So.
And I'll just add in response to your question that when we look at this across service providers and service buyers, we do find that the numbers are higher at service providers in terms of satisfaction with career choice and believing that there's a longer term future, because it makes sense. Service providers, it's core business, and service buyers, you're a little bit more on the outside of things. So one of the things that we'd like to see more of too is as that relationship, as the engagements change to become more collaborative and transparent, et cetera, that the career path also starts to develop out of that there's more sharing back and forth. As one person said to me, I can be working on the buyer side today, the provider side tomorrow. I want to know that I can make that kind of switch back and forth, and that makes sense. That's it's all one career.
Yeah, we're starting to see more people shift actually from the advisor roles onto the buy side now. That's definitely happening because there's less demand for advisors than there used to be, and I think that makes a big shift. I'd like to see people make the shift from providers to buyers. We don't see that much,
Yeah.
and buyers don't like to go anywhere; they like to stay. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's one question over there.
Oh, did I miss something?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I noticed on this slide you specifically used the term
I did.
And I think I may have seen that in a couple of other places. So does that mean that this line makes more of it is targeted towards sort of the more mundane type tasks like claims processing and call center and stuff, and not necessarily related to, you know, developers and QA professionals like all of us?
Yeah. So so first of all, it's interesting that you said mundane and BPO together, but not IT. Because there is a lot of BPO work that's not mundane, like clinical trials, statistics, and there's a lot of great, interesting stuff going on there too. But we did, in particular, focus most of this survey on questions that involve BPO, because we were looking at the migration of BPO talent with the impact of technology and career paths. But a lot of it you can extrapolate to IT from the perspective of defining a profession that is outsourcing broadly. So, does that answer your question? Okay. Sure. Okay, thank you.